hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying the spring-like weather. If you've got spring-like weather where you are, it's been crazy here. It's like we had snow up until about, I don't know, 10 days ago. And then all of a sudden it was spring. It just went from like the depths of winter to spring. So it's been really nice. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about all the books I read in February, and I read 6 books, which is a lot for me because February tends to be a bit of a reading slump because it's a short month, the weather is lousy, I just hibernate. Can you tell? I absolutely hate cold weather and I hate the winter. Yeah, I tend to just kind of hibernate and be a bit miserable, so it is surprising that I read that much. And I actually, you may have noticed on my thumbnail, you might not, that I just had the outside, the edge. God, it's a good start, isn't it? I can't think of the word edge. I just had the edges of the books showing. And the reason for that is that I didn't read this one this month because I read loads on Kindle. I read 4, is that right? 4 books on Kindle. 1, 2, yeah, maybe. Oh, I read 3 books on Kindle and then one of the books I don't have anymore. That's why. So yeah, so I had some like other books that I used. How clever of me to use the, you know, to show how many books I read. Anyway, so yeah, this month I have discovered Kindle, which is like, I mean, considering I publish my own books on Kindle, but I like audio, but I don't really get on with ebooks, and I have really discovered ebooks. I'm still always going to love a physical book as my first love because I love the cover, I love the feel of a book, I love the design of a book, a real book. I love having them on my shelf, I love how colourful they are. I'm not going to get over that, and I love audio. I can listen while I'm walking or whatever, so I've just never got into ebooks, although we've had this Kindle probably for 10 years, maybe more, even a really long time we've had this for, and it's my husband's. And I have read the odd book. I've probably read about 5 books on here in the whole time we've had it. It's his. And he quite likes it. Not that he doesn't read very much, but he does quite like it. But the reason I got into it is because this month I joined a book club. And so because the libraries are closed, we're having to get hold of copies of the books ourselves. So I used to be in a book club probably about 18 months ago. That stopped. And we used to get all our books from the library, but because you can order loads of copies of the same book through the library for a book club. But obviously with libraries being closed, as I say, we can't do that. So, and I didn't really want to buy books in physical copy because the book club books aren't necessarily going to be the kind of books I keep. And I don't keep a lot of books. You might know this about me, but I don't. I tend to get rid of quite a lot of books, and so yeah, I didn't want to just be buying them and getting rid of them because of the expense. I don't mind buying second-hand books, I quite often do, but yeah, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to get it on Kindle. It was like this whole exciting, I don't normally do this. It also helps with the expense of it, but I just thought if I'm buying, I don't know, 12 to 15 books a year, and for the most part they're ones that because generally I only keep non-fiction. So if it's fiction, I probably won't keep it. So yeah, I just thought I'm going to just get the Kindle ones. So yeah, so I did that, and then I got all excited by the whole prospect of ebooks, and I read another 2 ebooks this month. So very exciting. Anyway, I'll get into that and I'll review those later, because the first book that I read in February was this one. Did I say February in a really weird way then? I think I did. Anyway, this one, I actually didn't read it in February at all. That's such a lie. So I finished this on the last day of January, but I uploaded my wrap-up a few days early last month, and I didn't think I would finish this. The reason being, I had been reading this to my daughter for months. This is Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, 100 Tales... I can't read that. 100 Tales of Extraordinary Women. Brilliant. The text is really... really hard to see down there. And we have Goodnight Stories for Rebel Boys as well. And I have just been slowly reading this to my daughter over a really long time, and it just so happened that we finished it. So I included this in the books that I've read because I have literally read the entire thing to her. Sometimes my husband and I are both reading a book and then I wouldn't include it, but because, sorry, I keep moving up, because I literally read this whole book to her, I included this in books I have read because I have. I really, really liked this, and she really liked this. It allowed so many conversations because there's such a variety of people in here, and it's got the most gorgeous illustrations, all by different illustrators. The art style's really different. They're told a little bit like fairy tales, and the stories are kind of simplified, and they miss out some of the kind of shady details in some characters who are more, you know, just things that you wouldn't want to talk to kids about. So yeah, they are simplified and sometimes made less gritty. But yeah, so they're kind of age appropriate. So we've got who've got Amelia Earhart. They're all in, was it Earhart? Earhart. They're all in alphabetical order, so they're easy to find. I don't know, the Bronte sisters, Euphrosyne Cruz, activist and politician, Jane Goodall. I don't know, there's loads. There's absolutely loads and loads and loads and loads. Oh, Maya Angelou, I love Maya Angelou. It gave us, in fact, when we read the Maya Angelou one, I then showed May some videos of Maya Angelou reading her own poems because I wanted to show May how I just think that Maya Angelou's own voice adds so much to her poetry. And yeah, so we'd read one and then it would end up turning into a bigger conversation sometimes about some of these people and who they were and what they did, and May would ask questions about like what's an activist, what's a politician, what's, or, you know, so it really did allow us to have lots and lots of conversations. Some of these people I knew who they were, some of them I didn't, some of them I found really inspiring. There's just all sorts of people in here. I think, I think that this is a really good book for, as I say, starting conversations. You can read just one or two stories. And my daughter has dipped back into this book. She did a project about Cleopatra, so she went back in here to find the story about Cleopatra. Yeah, really good one. I really recommend for reading to kids. Also, if you're a teacher, this would be a really nice one to have and sort of, you know, be able to share stories from it. But it's just beautifully made. Really well told. You could read this with all sorts of ages of kids, and as an adult I enjoyed it, so really good one. So yeah, I mean, goodness knows when we started reading that, but I finished that at the end of January. I'm having to keep my Goodreads up because I can't remember what I read. So the next one, which I don't have a copy to hand, is The Body by Bill Bryson. This was one that my brother and my sister-in-law bought for me for my birthday. I've been going through, you've probably heard me talk about this, they gave me a big stack of books and I've been slowly reading through them. So I think The Body was the last one. And Bill Bryson is a funny one for me. I've read, well, I DNF'd Notes from a Small Island, which I tried on audio and couldn't get on with it. And then I read A Short History of Nearly Everything, and I read that on audio as well. And I think that took me a couple of sittings. I had to re-download it because I use Overdrive, I use a library app, so you only get so much time. And then, and I did finish that one, but I had very mixed feelings about it. So this one was interesting because I have a biology degree. I was a biology teacher. Well, I have a marine biology degree, but still, it's biology. And so I thought that this would be more up my street. I used to specialise in teaching human biology, even though my degree's in fish science, but hey. But I'm, you know, my human biology knowledge is really good and I'm really interested. So I thought this would be kind of more up my street really than A Short History of Nearly Everything, which is more physics. And yeah, I didn't get on with it at all. The reason being, so don't get me wrong, loads of people really love Bill Bryson, and I think that the factual information was really good. I knew most of it. There wasn't an awful lot that was news to me. So maybe some of the sort of discoveries, I might not know the scientists that discovered it, but yeah, I pretty much knew most of the factual scientific knowledge. It was obviously well researched. It's accessible. It is, you know, if you like Bill Bryson, don't take my word for it and think that it's not a good book. They are really well thought of and really well written books. But the reason I don't get on with it is that I find his writing makes me feel quite anxious, because he has this kind of quite wry style, kind of humorous, dry, and ordinarily that would be something that I would like, but I find that often it's focusing on things that are a bit negative. So for example, in this book it would be how your body could go wrong, or like nasty things, gross things, which I do have a certain amount of time for that. You know, in A Short History of Everything, a lot of it was around like how everything was just going to pot on the planet, and as I said, I'm not totally against that, but I just found that it made me feel progressively more anxious. A lot of the book focused on illnesses, and there was a load of stuff about stuff that linked with the pandemic as well, which at the time I really wasn't in the mood for reading. I actually skipped the last chapter altogether, because the last chapter is all about death, and after I'd read all this stuff about pandemics and illnesses and all this, I just thought I actually can't handle this. So I sort of skim read the last chapter, because I was like, no, and so I just find it makes me quite depressed. Whereas for me, biology is about wonder. It's a really positive thing of like, how amazing are our bodies, and it can do this, and it's wow, rather than like, oh well, it can do all this, but I didn't get on with it. I also felt that there was not enough. Was there even anything about breastfeeding? I actually don't. Was there anything? There may have been nothing. I think there was nothing. And there was a little tiny bit about the female reproductive system, and I looked and it was the same length as the bit about the male reproductive system. And the female reproductive system is so complex, it's how could that get as much room when it just is more complicated with the hormonal control and everything. And yeah, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure breastfeeding wasn't in it at all. And I felt, and there wasn't any sort of child development things, it was just, this is how your body works as an adult. Well, what about how your body grows, and the baby in the womb, and I know that that's my area of interest in particular, but it's important, and it bothered me. There wasn't enough. I mean, the reproductive bit was like this, you know, reproduction and child development and breastfeeding and all of that should have a major part, because where is our species without it? And so that bugged me as well, that to me that should have been a significant proportion, and it wasn't. It wasn't for me. But as I say, the science in it is amazing. If you want to learn about human biology, absolutely read it. It's really good. Most people like it. It's just, I don't. So yeah, don't take my word on it. It's not that it's a bad book. It just really wasn't for me. It wasn't my style. What can I say? So yeah, that was a bit of didn't like that one. Then I had my book club book, which was The Beekeeper of Aleppo, which I got on Kindle. Actually, no, I didn't. No, not that one yet. The next book that I read was Don't Tell Me You're Afraid, which was in my box of stories box that I unboxed a few videos ago. There's a link in the description. I have an affiliate link for it for transparency. But I think this is the last book from that box that I read, I think. But yeah, just for full transparency, I was sent this book and I have an affiliate link below, which I get a small commission from if you subscribe. You know how these things work. So yeah, anyway, so this one, Don't Tell Me You're Afraid by Giuseppi Catozzella, is about a girl called Samia Omar who grows up in Somalia, and she loves to run, and as she gets older she becomes more and more serious about her running, but the political situation in Somalia gets worse and worse. She gets to a point where she's having to train in a burqa and things like that. It's, you know, it becomes more and more difficult. Her family are in a progressively more difficult situation, and then she ends up having to run away from the situation, and it then follows her journey trying to get away because she desperately wants to be in the London Olympics. I loved this. It's quite simply told. It's one of those where it's told very matter of fact, this happened, that happened, not too emotionally, and the emotion is all in the reading between the lines, and I really like that. It's a translation from Italian. I think that shows a little bit. There's just some odd phrasing. Well, no, not odd. Sometimes you just can tell. I couldn't say that there was anything wrong with the translation. You could tell that it was translated. But I absolutely loved this. I loved the fact that you just could get, like I said, that emotion, but it wasn't that the writing style was trying to get you in that place. It was just, this is what happened. I learnt a lot from it. It was very interesting. It's a true story, one that I didn't know. And so, yeah, very powerful. I really recommend. Very good. I think I gave this 5 stars. Yes, I did. And then I read The Beekeeper of Aleppo, and it was a really strange coincidence that that's what the book club had picked. I'd literally just read a book about a refugee. So yeah, just funny that they kind of tied in. So I got that one on Kindle because I needed to get it quickly. That was the other thing. And The Beekeeper of Aleppo is about, I'm trying to remember the characters' names because I read it ages ago. The main character is called... So it's about a guy called Nuri and his wife Afra. Nuri was a beekeeper, and he worked with his cousin called Mustafa. Mustafa has already left. They live in Syria, and yeah, Mustafa's already gone, and he has fled to Yorkshire. And Nuri doesn't, well, he can't really leave. There's sort of complications. His wife really doesn't want to go, but the situation is getting worse and worse. And then he wants to try and join his cousin, and you know, all this stuff. And there's all these awful scenes of things that are happening in Syria, but they don't want to leave. They love Syria, and then make the decision that actually they're going to try and escape. And it follows their journey across into Greece and their time in Greece. And The Beekeeper of Aleppo is not a true story. It is based on true stories, if that makes sense. So the author, Christy Lefteri, I think I've said that right. No, Lefteri, sorry, Christy Lefteri. The author spent time working with children, I think predominantly, who were refugees, and she's used some of the stories that she heard and woven those into this tale. I loved this. This one was much more kind of artistic. It had a lot more beautiful scenes. It's sort of longer. It's more fictional. It feels more fictional. It is more fictional, but you know what I mean. It just has a bit more literary side to it. But I would say it's also in parts a lot more shocking, particularly in the parts in Syria, and seeing the contrast between the Syria that they loved and then as things start to go bad. What I really loved, I don't know with the physical book if it looks slightly different, but they had this thing where between chapters, the chapter would end with the same word as the next chapter, and that word, so it might be like, I don't know, sun, I don't know. And, the first one I think is bronze, so it ended with bronze, so it'd end, I'm describing this so well, the chapter would finish, but short one word, and then it would have the next page would say bronze in a big thing, and then the next chapter would start, but it would be missing the word bronze, if that makes sense. I just thought it was really cool. It just made it really beautiful. It had some really nice themes and little stylistic touches. I spotted one of the twists right from the start, but it didn't spoil it at all. I don't want to give spoilers, that's why I'm being a bit vague. But it was very powerful. Again, I learned a lot from it. I was very surprised by some of the situations. You know, I live on the Kent coast, so I'm fairly aware of the plight of refugees. I've driven through Calais when the jungle was huge there. You know, I am aware of a lot, but I still learn a lot from both of these books. I gave them both 5 stars. and I really, really recommend both of them. I just think they gave you that personal side of things as well. It's so good to personalise these situations and see actually what people are dealing with and get away from the media stories. So yeah, both really powerful books, very different in their style, and one was totally non-fiction and one was slightly fictionalised, but yeah, both gorgeous. Really recommend if you haven't read them. Moving on, what did I read after that? Oh, okay, so then I read Savvy Business Owner. It's a hashtag Savvy Business Owner by Savy Leiser. I'm not 100% sure if that's how you pronounce her surname. Savvy is an author tuber, I'll link her channel below. And when this book came out, when she announced it, I just love the cover of it. It's got a picture of her dog, Chewy, answering like with a phone, answering like a pink phone or with a phone next to him. Like a dog can answer a phone, hello. But like that's the idea. And it's just really, really cool. So her small business is, she is an author, but she writes books about rescue pets. She also writes fiction, but her main business is around this company where she writes these books about rescue dogs, and then there's like plushies and stuff, and it raises money for shelters and all that. So yeah, that's her business, her LLC. And she brought this book out, she does a lot of anti-MLM content. She's quite anti sort of business gurus. She is all about straight talking, honesty, and so that was the idea of this book. And she goes through how she set up her small business, lots of tips of things like how to get investment capital, it's kind of gives you the how-tos, but it also gives the personal story behind it, and I really like that. There's bits about things like how to register a company, although obviously it's different in the UK, but it's not totally different, how to approach your mindset, how to block your time out, lots of practical things that are very doable. She's very honest in the book about things that she does and doesn't know, and I really, really liked it. I've been looking to read more business books, or some business books. I've only ever read a couple, and I loved this. I took quite a lot from it in terms of her mindset. I found the stuff about raising capital really interesting. I found what she had to say about narrowcasting really interesting. I think if you are in a creative business, a creative small business, and you either are just starting out or you're maybe not far into... I've only been running a business since 2018 and I still have loads to learn. So for me it was great to kind of look at, yeah, I know that, oh, that's good to know, and look at that mindset. And yeah, I definitely took stuff from it. It's a very good book. I gave that 5 stars as well. As I say, if you're there, and I'm sure some of you are starting small businesses as writers, and I really recommend looking at how she's gone about it. There's some great tips in there. And I'm going to be running a Kickstarter soon. Her Kickstarter stuff was really good. Definitely check her channel out. She puts out all kinds of content, and yeah, she's really good, really nice, so go check her out. And then I just have one more book. So I read Savvy Business Owner on Kindle, and the next one I read on Kindle, which is 1984. Now, I have sort of read 1984 before. I don't even know if I've talked about it on this channel. I might have done, but a couple of years ago I had it on audiobook, and it was one that I'd got from the library, and the files corrupted the last sort of, I don't know, I think it was the whole 3rd section of the book. I might have had a little bit of it, but I think it probably was the whole 3rd section. As I say, it was corrupt, and then I had problems re-downloading it. I couldn't get it to work, and I just never got around to sorting it out. That's basically it. So I didn't DNF it. The book didn't work. And oh no, I didn't read this on Kindle. Yeah, no, I was. My husband gave me this, so he'd got it second hand. Anyway, I read it in physical book. So I thought, oh, when he gave it to me, I was like, oh, actually, yes, I do want to read that, because I never read the end. So then I remembered most of the story, so I was like, oh, I'm just going to read the end. And I couldn't find where I was, and as I was flicking through, I was like, oh, I don't remember that, and I don't remember that. So I completely started it again. I'm glad that I did, because I didn't remember that much of it. And I didn't remember the style, I think, so I think I would have been very confused. I wouldn't have known who the characters were. Yeah, I'm glad that I did actually completely start again. And 1984, didn't get on with it. Part of why I wanted to read it is because I was born in 1984. It feels like I should. Well, I mean, it's a pretty important book, isn't it? Anyway. So the reason that I didn't like it, firstly, I found it so unpleasant in things like, I mean, obviously it's meant to be, but things like, oh, he's eating and they're like pink, slimy meat and like it's gross. It's meant to make you, you know, the woman with dust in the creases of her face and like everything's meant to be a bit off and gross, but I didn't like it because I'm not in the mindset to read stuff like that really. And then I found the end of it, the bit I hadn't read, really wordy and just a bit boring. And I think also because the bits of it that I enjoyed, I'd read before. So I was like, yeah, I know this happens. So I really didn't get on with it. I also felt that where this kind of concept would have been incredibly shocking, I don't know, I mean it still is shocking, but just with recent political events and everything, it just didn't seem all that far-fetched. And in that respect it was depressing to read. Does that make sense? I think I'm glad I read it because now I understand better. I kind of already understood the cultural references to it, but I understand it better. And I think it's good to read these things and to understand how it was important culturally. But for me, now, sitting reading it, I didn't take anything from it. Partially that may be because I already am aware of concepts like Big Brother and Room 101 and mind control and doublethink and all this stuff. Like I'm aware of that and I'm aware it came from this book. So I think that doesn't help. It didn't shock me. It didn't surprise me. I didn't really take something from it like, oh my god, I look at society differently. I don't. And yeah, I just found it kind of an unpleasant read because of the way it's told. Again, don't take my word for it. I mean, it's 1984. It's huge. When I rate stuff, I rate it based on how much I enjoyed it, and I did not enjoy reading it. Nonetheless, a very important book, and a very, what's the word? A very, you know, a popular book. People like it. It changes people's points of views. It just didn't change mine. So yeah, as I say, again, like I said with with Bill Bryson's The Body, they're both good books, just not for me. And I find that really hard with reviewing books when I'm like, oh, I didn't like it, or I've given it a bad review. Should I give it a bad review when I know full well that this is not a bad book? I'm not giving it a bad review because I'm like, this book is terrible, which I have done in the past. I'm giving it a bad review because I didn't enjoy it. But how do you guys feel about that? I find that quite difficult, but that's what I do. I base my reviews on enjoyment. And I really enjoyed this one, and I enjoyed The Beekeeper of Aleppo, and I enjoyed this one. This one. I gave them all 5 stars. They were excellent because I liked them, I learnt from them, I found them interesting to read. Enjoyable is sometimes the wrong word, isn't it? If you're reading something about like awful refugee situations, but I enjoy them in that I'm learning, and that it is it's weird, isn't it? It's not a pleasant experience reading, but there is an enjoyment in reading a book that you're into and absorbed in and learning from. Yeah, but 1984 and The Body, I did not feel like that with, so there we are. That's why I reviewed them that way. I would love to know if you have read these and how you felt. I'm sure that my opinion on 1984 is probably controversial, but there we go. I would like to know what you think. So let me know in the comments, please, and like if you haven't already. Go and hit the like button. And pointing. Shouldn't be so aggressive. Yeah, please like and please subscribe if you haven't already, and go and enjoy the spring weather if you have some. That's exactly what I'm going to go and do. So thank you for watching and take care.